Hi, Pat again from Northwoods. We're ready to move on to our second card in our Spectacular Scenery Workshop class. So we're going to pull out our Old Mill card that, again, I've stamped ahead for you on our Northwoods watercolor paper. And so we're going to follow the stages on your color copies. So here we go. First step we're going to do, like we usually always do, we take a little bit of our 533 for our sky. We're going to add a little bit of color between the trees, like so, and then just take your wet paintbrush and pull that color out. Again, using your paintbrush at about a 45-degree angle, nice circular motion, pulling that color out. That's your sky that we'll achieve. The next thing we're going to do is take a really pretty bright green, 133. We're going to scribble a generous amount on all of the bushes, down here on the leaves, here on the grassy areas, and then on all of these trees, just a generous amount of the 133. And don't blend that yet. Then we're going to take the marker 126, which is a little bit more olivey color. We're going to add some in all of these little dotty areas on your trees that Jean Arneson, our artist, told us to do for our shading. Add some dots of that, also some on all of the bushes, and a little bit on the leaves. And then with your wet paintbrush, soften that with a little bit of water on all of the trees and the bushes, and then also on these grassy areas and the leaves. So you end up looking like so. Okay, so that's your first step. Next step, we're going to use just a little bit of yellow on your windows. You're just going to take the 055, put a little bit of the yellow on each of the windows, and we're not going to blend it. We're just going to leave it. Okay, now the next step, we're actually going to use 3 markers to do this. We're going to use a gray marker, N65, and we're going to color part of the bricks and the rocks with the N65. So just randomly, we're going to add some gray on these brick areas, just randomly. There's no right or wrong with this. We just want some varying colors. We're going to add a little bit on the various bricks you've got too, down here too, and we're not going to blend that yet. Then we're going to take another brown, 977, and again, randomly take that marker and add some of that brown in the brick area, and then also on the rocks, just so you have some different shades of color, a little bit on the rocks, and we're not going to blend that yet. Then you're going to take your marker 947, which is another color of brown, and again, kind of what you have left for bricks. So you're going to add a little bit of that color. So you're going to end up with really 3 different colors for your bricks, and then also add a little bit on your rocks. And then what you're going to do is just slightly blend those colors together with your wet paintbrush. So a little bit of water, and then just slightly blend, just like so. So it doesn't turn all the same color. You end up with still some varying colors, but just like that on all of these areas. Again, this stamp at first glance looks like a really hard one to color, but if you end up just taking a piece at a time, it really isn't that hard. Okay, then one other step, or actually 2 other steps here that we're going to do. We're going to continue to take this marker color, 947, and you're going to color the wheel here. Add some marker color to that, and then just soften that with your wet paintbrush. And then you have some fencing that we're going to take the fine end tip of your N65, which is your gray marker, and then just take and put lines of that on these areas of fence and on these cross slashes here and here. And then you can slightly blend that with your wet paintbrush. So again, the bricks, think of them as being like 3 different colors, a couple tones of brown and a tone of gray. Okay, that's the hardest part. Now we're going to move on to the fun. So we're going to take a really dark brown marker, which is 879, and then you're actually going to just add some color up these trunks of the trees. This one I'd use the brush end, but actually I would use the fine end tip on this area because you just want a nice fine end on all of the trees. It's all here and here, and again, fine end works great. Now on these fine areas, you're not going to blend that, but on this trunk, you can actually blend it a little bit just to pull out the color, like so. Okay, the next step, you're going to take a green marker, which is 249. It's a darker green, and you're going to, on all of these pine trees, you're going to add a little bit of that marker color, like so, all the way up and down the trees. And then you've got one over here. And then you're going to take your wet paintbrush and just slightly soften that. Okay, how are we doing? We're getting down to the last few steps. Now, what I did is I used some of the dark brown marker on the tree trunks here, but if you want to just up here on the areas here, you can just lighten these a little bit so it isn't quite as dark way up on top with the marker color 947, so it's not quite as dark. So again, kind of using 2 browns there. On the main trunk you did the darker, and then the lighter with the 947. Now for your water, you can do one of 2 things. I put down marker 555, which is a little bit more aqua, but if you want it a little bit darker blue, you can use 565, which I didn't put down. So just to show you the difference for your finished product, the 565 is going to be a little bit bluer tone. I'm going to show you down here. So a little bit more like that. If you want it a little bit more aqua, just to show you the difference, we're gonna see that. So if you want, you can actually use a combination of both, or if you want it a little more blue, go with the 565. If you want it a little more aqua, the 555. And then again, just soften that, a little bit of water, and soften that with your wet paintbrush as you go. Okay, how are we doing? So finally, we're getting down to our red, which is going to be our old mill. What you're going to do is take your 847 marker, and you're actually going to pretty much color the whole thing in the 847. And then again, don't go into those yellow windows. And then what you can do is just slightly soften that with your wet paintbrush, but it's the very last thing you want to do. Okay, the only thing that I think I missed here, looking at the final product, is your roof. Again, we're kind of new to these videos, so thank you for your patience. But I think what we'll do is just add a little bit of your N65 to your roof. Just add some marker color here and just soften that with your wet paintbrush. It's not going to show that much, but again, that kind of finishes up your card. So when you're done, you can see this is what it looks like when your coloring is done. Now again, this I ended up doing a little bit more of the 565, which is a little bit more deeper blue than the aqua. So again, it can go either way. And then we'll take this, and then on your base card, I did a beautiful stitch die with the red dotted Swiss paper and a blue dotted Swiss paper. And then we're gonna mount that on there. And then we're gonna add a saying, wishing you a happy birthday. So that's card number 2. And again, you can glitter this when you're done. We won't spend a lot of time on it with this class, but this is what we have. So card number 2 is complete.